Hello everyone and welcome to my coloring corner. What we're going to do today is we're going to color with pastel colored pencils. These are actual pastels. They're not just pastel colors. These are a dust soft pastel. These are the Master Touch Fine Art Studios 48 count pastel colored pencils. They're gorgeous colors. Absolutely wonderful colors. And we're going to actually color an entire picture with them. So this should be fun. I have only done this a couple of times, so I will try my best to explain to you what I'm doing as I'm doing it. I'm not going to color the entire page. I will just color little areas so that it doesn't end up being a 40-hour video. So this is the picture we're going to color. It is a Patreon picture for Heather Valentine. So if you want beautiful, beautiful art like this that she draws specifically for her Patreons, I will make sure that I leave a link to her Patreon group in the About section below this video. Her Patreon tiers are super, super, super affordable. So absolutely, if you enjoy Heather's work and want to become a Patreon, do so, because some of the stuff that she is putting out just for her Patreons is gorgeous. So this is what we're going to color, and we're going to try to color it with pastel pencils. So this should be interesting. So I hope that you are all ready to sit for a little while and watch this video, and hopefully I don't completely mess it up because it's a gorgeous picture and I would hate to ruin Heather's work. I'm going to switch you on over to, actually I'm just going to keep you on this camera now for a little bit so that I can explain a few things. The pastel set is a full colored pastel pencil. They are dusty, so when you color with them, and they do break fairly easily, as you can see with this one. I put too much pressure on it and broke it. So when you do color with them, you can either color really, really dark, or you can do a dark line and take, I'll switch you over so you can see better. There you go. I'll put the light on. So you can do a dark line like this and just take a sponge or a brush and smooth it out so that it's not as dark. But you can color with these pretty much the same way that you color with a colored pencil. You just have to be careful brushing things off. The one thing that I have noticed with coloring with these types of pencils is I have a tendency to brush things off all the time. And if you brush things off, you're going to end up making a huge mess. So try really hard not to brush those off. Another thing that I have noticed with these pencils is you cannot color in circles and do that sort of thing. It's small, quick little strokes. Otherwise, you're going to end up, making a chalky mess. They do sharpen, like I am using a sharpener. They do sharpen to almost a fine point. They don't get really, really fine, but they do get pretty good. So doing really small areas might be a little bit more difficult, but the payoff for it is pretty good. Now I'm going to actually grab one of these if I can get the package open. I know I always think about it after the fact that I need this or this. So as you can see, I'm just spreading that orange a little bit. Now I'm going to do a large area, so I'm going to do the dress. And I haven't swatched these. I'm just going by the color of the crayon itself. And that one looked awfully pink. This one's red, yeah. So if they're horrible colors, I'm sorry. Now, like I said, these are chalk, so they are soft pastels. So you are going to get this all over your hands. So I'm hoping that this is a darker color of red. That I'm using here. Now, you can see her arm through there. So that tells me that this part of her gown is a little bit see-through. So I'm not going to go really heavy on the color here. Just going to do the edges a little bit. But up around her arm, I will use more of the peachy colors. In between those red lines. So I will color down here a little bit because I want it to be darker down here. But once I get close to her arm, I'm going to slow down and smudge more of that. So I'm going to take that smudge line, and hopefully I have a couple of skin tones there. So I'm just going to take my little thingy here, and I'm just going to smudge that up to where her arm is. Of course, don't worry too much about getting outside the lines because you can erase it. This is one of those pictures where you are going to have to make sure that you spray in order to maintain your lines and your color on your page. So I'm just trying to find, oh, there it is. I thought my husband ran off with it. I'm trying to find my fine eraser, and I'm just going to erase this red area here because that's into her wings, and we don't want red in her wings. Make sure that you're coloring away from your hand. So this is one of those pictures where you're going to end up flipping a lot. Use your brush gently. So don't actually run the brush hard against the page. Otherwise, you will end up with chalk everywhere. And if you want a darker line, just don't smudge it. Like this area here, I want a little bit darker. So I'm not actually going to smudge that area. I'm just going to leave that dark. I am going to take my brush and wipe off any excess, or I'm going to just dump it off. But I'm not going to actually brush it or smudge it. So just give me a second here. I'm going to knock off the excess. And then we're going to take a skin tone color. I'm going to put this one back. Make sure that you put them back in the little holders that they have. Otherwise, because if one of these drops on the floor, you're definitely going to end up with a broken pencil. So I'm just going to see if this is the color I want or if it's too yellow. And it is a bit too yellow. I'm not seeing a whole lot of skin tones in here. That's awfully yellow too. So I'm going to actually use this one. It's a little bit more skin tony. And I know I should have swatched these, but I don't use them a whole lot. And I may end up having to do her skin tones with actual pencil. But with this area here, I can bring some of that red in and make it look a little bit more pink. This is also one that I probably won't smudge a whole lot. I'll smudge it enough to blend it into the red, but just because I want it to be a little bit more. I'll take a bit of pink and I'll smudge it into here and see if we can get that more of a skin tone and not so yellow. Just going to smudge off some of that color and bring that red through a little bit so it looks like it's the color of the dress that is showing through on her arm there. And then we're going to take this side and we're just going to brush that so that we can get that skin color. Just going to add a bit of that red. Oh, I'm off camera. Sorry, guys. So what I'm doing here is I'm just mixing that tone with a little tiny bit of red and trying to get a skin tone. Just for the under part of this. And I'm going to pretty much end up dusting most of that off and adding other colors to it so that we get the proper amount of tonal colors. I want this one, I think. It should look all right once we get it all blended together. Now I'm trying not to put down a whole lot because this is a very purpley bright pink. But once we get it down, we can blend it in and it will look more like what we want it to look. So I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to blend that into that color. Now just remember, if you get this on areas that you don't want it to be, that's what erasers are for. And if we just give it a bit of a rub, we can knock down some of that darker color there. And then we have that skin tone. Now, if you find that you've taken too much off, of course you can add a little bit more. in the areas that you feel that you've taken too much off, and you can rub it in. Just make sure that you don't put too much pressure on your applicator so that you don't rub too much off. Like I said, I think that's not too bad. It's not the perfect skin tone, but it's not too bad. I'm going to take a bit more of this pink. And it's a bit of a purpley pink. But it is one of the lighter pinks I have, so. All right, so we're going to actually take this purple, which is a lighter purple, and I've got a good point on that, so I'm just going to use it the way it is. And I'm just going to put in the shadow of her hair. And the side of her face. And a bit under her nose. These areas on her eyes. Just putting in the shadows. And then I'll take this skin tone color and I'll blend that in. Together. These are really scratchy, so if you don't like the feel of scratchy, you may not like doing this. But it's just the nature of the beast, really. Like I said, these are chalk pastels. So you are going to get that chalk feel. Well, they're soft pastels, so I should say. Okay, now we're just going to utilize the color that we have on there and bring that in to the rest of her face so that we don't end up with a really, really dark face. Now I know I've gone over the lips as well as the eyelashes, and I will go back over those with a pencil. I'm going to add some pink. Into little areas that I think are going to be a little rosier. Like I said, if you get an excess or too much powder on there, use your brush, dust it off. Like that. Just don't rub it really hard because then you're going to get dust everywhere that you don't want dust to be. Now I'm going to find a nice darker pink and do her lips. I'm just going to spread that over just a little bit. Okay, now we're going to put that one back because we're going to use it again later, but not right now. Keep on rubbing my arms, rubbing my hands off. So I need that red that I started with, which is this one. No, it's this one. And we're going to work on this sleeve. This is her arm. So we're just going to do the shadow areas. And we will bring that up into her arm after we put her arm color in there, the bottom part of the sleeve. And any touch-ups that you want to do, best time to do them is... Okay, so now we're going to drag that color up. And we're just dragging it to the bottom of her arm. So that the cloth looks fairly see-through. And then we'll just take this tanny color and we're going to brush that off. And then we're going to take the tanny side and we're going to blend that all in. And join them together. And then I'm going to take this darker colored pencil here and we're just going to do the very bottom. And I'm not going to blend this in. I'm just going to draw the color it in so that there's a shadow there. And now we're going to dust that off. And then we're going to do her dress. So as you can see, it looks like her arms are through there. I'm just going to give it a bit more pink here. And we'll rub that in. Just so that the color of the dress is showing on the edge there. So it looks see-through, but it doesn't look like it's her arm sticking through. So you gotta make it look so that the color of the dress is there, as well as the color of her arm. Because we want it see-through, we don't want it to be sleeveless. Then take your eraser, go down and make sure that your colors are where they're supposed to be and not where you don't want them to be. And then gently, I'm not even touching the page, I'm just causing air to move everything away. And then we're going to do this part of her dress. Make sure you don't get too close to where you don't want that color to be. Try to stick to the areas that you know are going to be darkest in shadow, because we're going to draw with our blender, we're going to drag that color down to where we want it to be, into the lightest areas. So you're leaving your highlights open and just bringing your color down into your highlights, into your areas that are going to be lighter because of light sources and whatnot. And you just blend that in. And again, if you get color where you don't want it to be, with this kind of coloring, the eraser is your friend, and it's the best friend you have. Don't lose your eraser. Okay, now I'm going to take this pencil and I'm going to just re-highlight or re-shadow those edges. But I'm not going to blend that in. I'm going to keep that dark. Like that. I'm just going to bring it up a little bit here. Sorry, just bumped you. Now, I'm going to do the same thing here. Just going to put in the highlight, drag it in. Or the shadow, I mean, and drag it into the highlight. You're definitely going to get things on smaller details like that all over the place. So as I said before, make sure that you have your eraser handy. Brush off the eraser marks. And then we're going to go down. And I'm putting the most amount of the pigment in the areas up at the top here, and we will drag them down. And there's a lot of dust with this part because we're going to do large areas. Don't do swirls, do lines. I know that's not usually something you hear while you're coloring, because I was always taught to do tight little swirls. It would fill more. But because this is a soft pastel, it's going to be dusty. And if you do little swirls, you're going to find that you have dust everywhere. So if you stick to using just little strokes, you will find that the dust is more controllable. You can control where it's going a little bit better. Okay, so down here, now I'm going to drag that all the way down to here. But down here I want to have some more shadows. But I want all this area here to be more see-through, more sheer. So I want it to have the really light areas. So I'm just going to fill in these heavier areas, and then I'm going to drag all of that color, that excess color, into those areas that I want to have lighter. Try to avoid putting your hand on the areas that you have colored. I know this is a large area and a lot of dust is still sitting there. And we want that dust to do what we're going to do to move it around. So we're going to take our applicator and we're just going to drag all of that dust down. And just keep dragging it down. Don't swirl it, just move it in strokes to where you want it to be. If you swirl it, it's going to rub off too much, and it won't give you the effect that you want to have. Now, if you find that you're pulling too much off of an area that you don't want to pull as much from, of course, take your pencil and just go over it again. Like this area here, I want it to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to put the pencil down there a little bit, and then I'll drag it up a little bit. Just remember that a lot of these applicators are not extremely fine lined, so you are going to have areas that you're going to need to erase. I'm going to dust, oh no, I'm going to wipe off, brush off this area here. Any larger areas that you find that you need to erase, use a larger eraser. I don't want red snow, so we're going to erase that. And then we're going to move over to the other side, and we're going to do the exact same thing. I do apologize. My phone is ringing, and I will let the answering machine take it. It is my eye doctor. All right. Sorry about that. Unfortunately, it seems that the entire world can tell when I'm filming and don't want the phone to ring. All right, so I want this area here to be a little bit darker. So I'm just adding a little bit more there. Now we're going to take our applicator and we're just going to drag that down. And like I said, if you get dust somewhere you don't want it to be, just use your eraser. All right. This is a bit quicker than doing this with a colored pencil. of course, but it is a little bit more finicky. And if you have a thing about textures and that sort of thing on your hands, this may not be the best way for you because you do end up with a chalky feel on your hands. I'm just getting some of that excess off there. All right. Now I'm going to do her bottom of her dress here. I'm going to do that in green. So I need this green, a nice dark one. And before you go, like I'm going to finish this picture with some metallic colored pencils and that sort of thing. And before you do that, make sure that you spray a fixative on your page so that the pastel stays on your page. So I'm going to grab another thing here because red and green mixed together does not make a pretty color all at the same time. So they make a pretty picture, but not a pretty color. So we're just going to drag that green and try to keep it all where we want it to be. Don't need green snow either. Okay, we're just going to dust that off and take our handy dandy eraser. If you have a lot of red from doing the dress or anything else on your eraser, just rub it off. You can do that by rubbing it on either a piece of paper or I do it on my cutting mat. So pretty much anywhere that you can rub a eraser on, it will take the color off. Now this area here I'm going to do in that gold color, so I'm going to take the eraser and erase that. And of course we don't need green snow. And I'm just cleaning up the areas that I do not want those other colors in. Because they're going to be done with a different medium. So, all right. And then just wave your eraser or your brush around. Try not to hit too much of your color. And as you can see, I've got it on my hands. So when I lay my hands down, it's leaving that red coloring that I have on my hands on the page. All right. So now we're going to do, since we have the red and the green out, we're going, and yellow is easily accessible. We're just going to do this. I'm going to actually do the yellow first, just because it's an area I want to not have red and green in. And I put as much of a sharp point as I can on this, and I'm just going to go around. The only thing you have to be careful with these lighter colors is when you get too close to the inked areas, you can end up picking up some of that ink if you're not careful. I accidentally, well, not accidentally, I printed this a little bit later than I wanted to, so I don't think it gave it enough time for that ink to be completely solidified. So the pickup, I think, is more the fact that I didn't give it enough time to set. But if you just carefully avoid it, any of those white spot areas that I haven't hit, I can hit with the blender. Okay. And then we'll just take this blender, take a clean side, and just put in different little highlight areas, different areas where the tone is going to be different. And then we'll put, oh, we need the eraser down here because there is too much red on there. Dust that off. Put your heaviest color, of course, where your shadows are going to be. And of course, we can blend in or dust off as necessary, right? Okay. Now I'm just going to take the blender, the yellow side that I've already used, and I'm just going to lighten certain areas. Not too concerned with getting this yellow over the green areas like on the holly, because green will stand up to yellow just fine. And I could have done this in the gold that I'm going to do this with, but that wouldn't have showed you guys how to deal with those lighter colors. So as you can see here, right here, the ink has bled a bit. So it's got that dark gray look to it, and that's because I tried to put color down before the ink was completely dry. That is completely my fault, but it'll work itself out. Okay, so I've got the yellow down. I'm going to go around and put little holly berries in. Now with the holly berries, I'm not going to blend them or anything. I'm going to just dust it off. So I'm just going to flick that color, any dust that's on there, off. And then we're going to take the green and we're going to fill in those little holly leaves. course, the train is going to come by now too. Like I said, between the phone and the train, nobody wants me to film. Every time I pick up the camera, I swear. Okay. So I'm just going to actually stop there, and I'll show you what I've done so far. I know it's been 45 minutes now, and I've done quite a bit in 45 minutes, but it is going to take me a little while longer to finish this and to tweak it and to get everything perfect in it. And I know that more than an hour long is a little bit too long for a video. But I'm going to switch you over to the other camera here, and I'm going to show you what I've done. So that's what we've done so far. And I'm going to finish her holly and her berries and her hair. I will do part of the snow, the background, as well as these trees and her wings, all in pastels. The metals and the metallic areas I will probably do with a colored pencil because I don't have a metallic pastel. But I am going to try to do 99% of this picture in just pastels. So I hope this has helped anybody that wants to color with just the pastels on how to do that and how to blend them and move that color around without making too much of a mess. Also, I will remind you that these are very chalky, so make sure that you do have an eraser handy at all times because you will need it for areas that are covered with chalk or color that you don't want to be there. Also, make sure that you have your brush. These brushes are fantastic. They are wide enough that you can cover a large area at once, and they're soft enough that if you go like this, it's going to make an air movement. As you can see with the paper there, the paper moves. So when you do this, it's just going to blow away any excess that you have. If you don't touch your paper and you just do this, it's going to move that excess right off your paper without rubbing it in. So if you want to rub it in, touch the paper. If you don't want to rub it in, you're just removing excess that you want off your paper altogether, or eraser dust that you want off your paper altogether. Just go above it. With that, I thank you all very much for joining me. If you want to join me over on my Facebook page, of course, that is the My Coloring Corner in Facebook. There are some questions that we ask that you fill out in the application. If you could please do that, somebody would be happy to get you all set up and moved into the membership area. There are no rules other than the fact of course, listing your source and, of course, listing your mediums when it comes to posting. So we're not artist specific. You can post anything that you would like as long as it isn't somebody else's work. Make sure it's always your own work, and make sure that you list your source and your mediums. We do not allow anybody to post from Pinterest or Google search. So make sure that you have all that information. If you want to help me out here on the channel with things such as our giant Christmas bash that we just had recently, by donating a monetary donation to the channel, there is a PayPal link in my channel, the main page of my channel, on the header bar. There's a link to my PayPal. There's also a link to my Amazon wish list as well as a link to the Facebook group. So if you want to click any of those links, you can definitely do so. I will also list it in the description area of this video, as well as the link to Heather Valentin's Patreon, where you can get this image. You do have to be a Patreon member, and her Patreon memberships are really, really inexpensive. So definitely show her some love and join her Patreon and get some beautiful pictures. All in all, I thank you all very much for joining me, and I hope this was helpful. Have a fantastic day. Always remember to relax, color, and stay safe. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Leave me a comment. It does help me out in choosing what I show you next. And, if there's any sort of things that you want to see that I might be able to do, I will be happy to do my best to show that to you. If you are not a current subscriber of the channel, of course, hit the subscribe button. If you're enjoying my videos, please do subscribe. I do appreciate it. And of course, ring the bell. I put out a video every week, or well, every day of the week. And last but not least, just a quick reminder that I will be taking a Christmas vacation of the week of Christmas, and I will be back the week after. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic day and a wonderful, wonderful holiday. Bye-bye for now.